Hey, what's your problem? You have business problems? We have business solutions.
Not guaranteed.
Well, maybe. Life is a fight.
It is.
In business, every day is a fight. So, hey, what's your problem?
Yes, thank you, John David Wells, as always, the big voice guy. Hopefully we'll get him here to do an episode with us, but he's in the Big D. And he's supposed to be getting to Nashville at some point. Check him out at the Wells Report on Facebook. And you'll be able to see what he looks like and listen to his show if you're into that kind of thing. This is the What's Your Problem podcast, where we talk to Middle Tennessee business owners and professionals about the one thing that keeps them up at night. It's always something. I mean, life is like that. You're always going to have something that's bothering you. For me, it's always little things, like when the video editing software I use doesn't all of a sudden crashes. I'm like, this is a 1999 problem. Why is it still happening in 2023? It drives me up a wall. This is a video, audio, and audio podcast. Check us out at whatsyourproblempodcast.com. This is the year 2023 where we're looking for 10,000 average downloads for this podcast. If you can help us out, please like, subscribe, rate, and share. We're getting a lot of cool response on Twitter these days. People giving me feedback. It's pretty awesome. I am your host, Jim McCarthy, with JimMcCarthyVoiceovers.com, and today, a recurring guest from long ago, actually July of 2022. If you come on the show and I invite you on, it means that I like you a lot. If I invite you back on, it means I really like you. Mr. Dan Rogers.
Good afternoon, Jim.
Yeah, buddy.
Man, to be invited back, it just kind of came up impromptu. You're like, hey, what are you doing tomorrow? I'm like, can I be on the podcast?
Yeah, that's the only way I will come out there.
So, it's funny, like the problems that we have, you're talking about the things that like a technology, why won't this thing boost up? And I have this saying, and we'll start this off maybe like a funny story. So I have this saying where I have this in my mind. I know that cell phones are eventually going to give me some sort of cancer, brain cancer or something like that. I'm
sorry not to laugh at that.
Like all the studies, they say that like goldfish grow in a third eye. Like there's all these, like if they're near a cell phone.
Yeah.
So I am okay with the exchange of a cell phone working for brain cancer. But I'm not okay if the exchange means that I get brain cancer and my cell phone doesn't work.
Yeah.
It's got to be both. Come on.
I don't really have too many problems with my cell phone. It's always computer issues, small things. It's the small things that drive me frickin' batty. It's like, I don't have time to deal with this. The other day, my little Roadcaster here, not to throw shade on Rode, but their customer service was fantastic. They helped me through the problem. The first edition of the Roadcaster was flawless. Now the second generation they came out with, the thing has just been littered with problems, and I had experience. All of a sudden, it just wouldn't turn on. I'm going, come on, power. Really?
It's funny when you get into with customer support, and I've had this experience. I was working for a technical company, and we provided support for our software systems.
Yeah.
And we had these big, gigantic $50,000, $60,000 scanners that we would deploy, and our techs had to ask this question. Like, there's a sequence of questions. The first question was, is the machine's light on?
Yeah.
Yes or no? Because if it's not on, they're like, okay, so that could be the light switch. It could be not plugged in. It can be the power's off. And so they have to figure out, like, if the light's on, that takes them down a completely different path. So many phone calls. Is the light switch on? No. Okay. Is it turned on? Yes. Is it plugged in? Oh, I'm sorry, it's not plugged in.
And it's like when you make those calls as somebody who's got the problem, you feel like the biggest dumbass.
So dumb. We had one, and this is just like what people are capable of. My guy goes through all these. This is a funny story. I haven't told this in a long time. So he goes through all these tests and like light on, switch on, plugged in. Do you have power in your building? Yeah, I have power in my building, because there's actually a famous one about that. You can look it up where the building power is out, and she's like wondering where the power is for her computer. He says, "Okay, so do you still have the box of the computer?" Yes. Okay, you need to put the computer back in the box and ship it back to us. Well, why? Right. Because you're too stupid to operate a computer in the building with no power. That's that story. But our story, we couldn't get it on the phone, couldn't get it to work. And so my tech goes out there, and he sees the light switch, or the switch to the room is on. The machine is working. It's plugged into the power strip, like these really huge industrial power strips, and then he notices the problem, and he says, "Ma'am, It's going to be a little bit, so you might as well just go like on lunch or something like that and just come back. And she's like, oh, is it that serious? I think it's going to be that serious. Mm-hmm. She leaves. He closes the door. He opens up YouTube for an hour just to make it look like he's doing something. The power strip was plugged into itself, not into the wall.
Oh, my God. So he basically saved face for her.
Exactly. Yeah. It cost him like $500 for a service call, but like that's how some humans are. They just don't see what's obviously in front of them. And that's probably like a testament for business and in life. I call it repetition blindness. Like if your shoes are on the floor long enough, you will not see them.
Yeah.
So the dishes in the sink, that kind of thing. So she just didn't see that as a problem.
When I was in the phone business with my dad, we would go out there and this phone all of a sudden stopped ringing. And you look down on it and the do not disturb button's on.
Love that action.
And
love it.
I would do the same thing. I don't want to embarrass them, make them feel like an idiot. Let me look at this, go do what you need to do. Mm-hmm. And this should probably take me maybe 5-10 minutes. I should be able to take care of this. Okay, that would be fantastic. Literally they leave the room, hit the button, and then like what you're talking about, just kind of burn time for a bit.
And ultimately, I think that makes the mark of a really good technician in life, whether it's your dentist who like fishes around in your mouth for an hour and then pulls out that piece of beef jerky that you had in there for a couple of days. Like that's what it is. Like you have to kind of give your clients a dog and pony show every now and then. What you said, saving face. Yes, it is a part of saving face. And it's just people are people, like they just, if it's not their thing, they're not gonna know to ask.
Yeah, it's
not their fault.
It's like the people that say common sense isn't all that common. I'm like, it's subjective sense. It depends on what you relate to.
Yep. So I made a point to try and weave this back into our conversation.
Yeah.
It would be as if somebody, like a kid, calls their dad in the middle of work and says, "Dad, my car's not working."
You mean that like the thing that just happened?
I mean that thing that just happened. And she's, how old is she? 16, 17?
16. Yeah.
16 years old.
So just for context, my daughter literally before we went live with this podcast called me and Dad, my car won't start. So she and her friends have had, the two cars pointed together. They've got the jumper cables.
Hey, they got that far, man.
Yeah. Kudos to them.
Yeah.
They're trying to figure it out. They need a little bit of help, but trying to convey the message in a spotty Wi-Fi type of scenario where she's hearing every other word. Yeah, it gets pretty heated quickly. And I become like, another version of my attorney brother who's got no temper, who's got a temper and no patience.
Here's the thing. Clients, our spouses, our kids, at times we have to give them grace.
Yeah.
Because they may have super high processing power. They can figure things out, but they may not have the wisdom to have ever seen that problem before.
Right.
And your daughter was thinking that it was a battery, but as soon as you put the keys in, like there was chiming, and so it was probably not a battery, and the gas gauge was on empty, and she says it couldn't have run out of gas. Well, why not? Because I was going to the gas station right now.
Yeah.
Well, how the hell? That's like,
is the light on? Yeah. How long has it been on? 2 days. But I only have gone back and forth to school. It doesn't matter.
Yeah,
it adds up.
So the point is, she had never come across that experience.
Yeah.
And what was funny is because you and I have a background in the car business. As soon as she turned it on, I heard the noise from a FaceTime from me looking at the phone across the room. I said, "That's gas." She's out of gas.
Yeah.
And so then we figured the light was out. And
either that or it might be, hopefully it's not the fuel pump.
Yeah.
But I looked at the fuel gauge. I got a glimpse of it on the video, and I'm going, "Oh, she's out of gas."
Yeah. So funny thing, like I think that just and here you are trying to explain to her in language that she understands and can interpret, and then she's trying to make sense of it and interpret it back to us. Man, if I'm going to segue here, can I do a segue?
Sure.
If I have a problem right now, like what's the problem in my life right now? It's conveying to business owners these simple things in life. And I have this.
Are we already there?
We're already there. Dude.
Oh my God.
I did it for you.
That's a record. 10 minutes in. We haven't even done the dad joke challenge yet. We've already uncovered your problem?
Yeah. So my problem is being able to convey to people who are super smart in their domain, but they don't have wisdom in my domain.
Yeah.
How do I use the language that's right for them? And so when we're giving people directions on how to get to our house, there's some people who count the streets, go the 3rd street, go right, go 4 streets, go left, go. And then we have the people who give actual go left on Elm, go right on Main, go left on Walnut. And then there's people go left on the blue house, go right on not the purple house, but the house that looks purple, but it's kind of blue. I mean, it could be like violet, but whatever.
Yeah.
Go to the house that looks kind of stands out.
The striped door.
And then go right. So people give different directions, and I always find it interesting what directions people give. You can tell a lot about people by do they give you streets, numbers of terms, or vague references. Take a right at the person who's really decorated for Halloween. Was it decorated now? No, but they decorate really nice for Halloween.
And everybody knows that.
Golly, like that's their referential language, though. So that's what you have to kind of navigate.
You see, in radio, actually, let's hold on this, and then we'll come back to it because I got to give kudos to not kudos, but
are we doing the jokes now?
We're doing the jokes.
All right, here we go.
So here's the Dad Joke Challenge, brought to you by Mr. Ed Fox and Trade Bank. We're both familiar with Mr. Ed Fox.
I love Ed.
Yeah,
I love me some Ed.
And he is. If you had to use Trade Bank, actually, this kind of economic environment's not a bad opportunity to get into Trade Bank.
So true story.
Yeah.
I'm for shameless plug, whatever. It doesn't help me at all. I'm actually getting on Trade Bank. I actually had a conversation with Ed the other day, and there's a thing that I do that I'm going to put out there, and my goal is to see if I can get a vacation, a $10,000 vacation in 1 year, doing this one little thing that's like a side hustle, just through Trade Bank numbers.
And the thing is that he's always said, even on this podcast, that resistance is futile.
Yeah.
That eventually we will be assimilated.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's
he won me over.
Me too.
Yeah. So here we go.
Yeah.
The Dad Joke Challenge, where if you laugh, you lose a point. If I laugh, I lose a point. If we both laugh, we don't. It's null set. And the great thing, we don't keep score. We can react. I don't want to hear just like I don't want to try you to try and keep a straight face.
Okay.
React to it. You can wriggle your nose. You can groan.
I laugh easy. That's why I do laugh easy.
All right. So here we go. Here's the first joke. But he actually records these for us.
And how many you have?
We got 5.
Okay, 5.
There we go.
When you've seen one shopping center, you've seen them all.
I get it.
Yes. When you see one shopping center, you've seen a mall.
So I think that if he had a little bit more of a southern accent on that one, it would have played out better.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was close.
That was good. And what makes it charming is his Aussie accent.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Yeah, my dad always considered a will a dead giveaway.
See, that one's better.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah.
All right, here we go.
What did the 80-year-old pirate say at his birthday party?
I love pirate jokes.
I'm 80.
See, that's I get it. That's quality, man.
That's pretty good, man. He is unashamed about this stuff,
Yeah.
Here we go.
How much do dead batteries cost? Nothing. They're free of charge.
Boom.
See, that one I saw coming. It's okay.
And finally.
Why shouldn't you write with a broken pencil? Because it's pointless.
Another. See,
Why am I laughing so hard at that one?
So I think that the point of dad jokes is how much do you understand language? Obviously, the English language, and there's a comedy tour I saw when I was 19 and in college.
Yeah.
And the premise of the joke is they're called groaners. And the setup for the joke is the same every single time. I would say, Jim, give me a noun, and you'd give me any noun, like a person, place, or thing, like
Right. All right. Car.
A car, yeah. So the premise is always the same. It's 185 cars walk into a bar, obviously, or the cars drive into the bar, and then for whatever reason, the bartender says no. Hey, I'm sorry. For whatever reason, like we don't serve cars at our bar. Like all you cars have to go.
Yeah.
And the cars, like these are like angry cars, and so they're like, we're not gonna beep. We're gonna beep. We're like like it's the honk. So it's a silly play on words, but you take and like how creative you can be. Double entendre, idioms, puns, all those things that are like comedic bases.
Yeah.
You'll take them and you'll say like why the things can't leave.
Yeah.
So like I won't do another one because we got to get on to where we're going to go. But it shows how creative your brain is. If like that, a broken point, how is a broken point related to pencil. It's pointless. Like how they go back and forward, I think they're actually very, very clever.
Yeah.
It takes a bigger mind.
It does, and they're fun.
Creative.
I always tell everybody that the dad joke originated with the comedian Stephen Wright. That's all he did was dad jokes.
I thought it originated with a dad.
It probably did. I think they're known as dad jokes now, but Stephen Wright, I think, was the originator. I mean, he did just dry, witty one-liner jokes, and he was huge for it.
And they're I think they're infinitely more creative than a whole bunch of
They are.
expletives and things like that. And like, I think I find them to be so much more interesting and witty than some of the self-deprecating humor that you see out there. That's
totally.
very popular now. So,
Well, there you go. The Dad Joke Challenge brought to you by Trade Bank, Mr. Ed Fox.
Thanks, Ed.
If you're looking to find an alternative way to use some unused stock, or maybe you're in a service business, Trade Bank is a good way to get maybe pay for your phone service or other services for your business using trade, especially in an economy that's kind of tightening up at the moment. Hopefully not for long. So
can I tell you how I'm going to use Trade Bank?
Go ahead.
Okay, so I'm going to use Trade Bank in reverse, where there's a lot of people who are looking for things to buy, or they want people to buy their goods. And I'm going to look on it for people who I want to buy from, and then I'm going to see if I can actually sell them on the service that I provide. And so I'm going to use it as a prospecting tool, not just a where I can actually use my own Trade Bank. So I think that if people use Trade Bank and they get on it and they say, "Hey, I see that you're on Trade Bank, and I do this thing and you do this thing. Do you think that we could actually have some power together?" I think if somebody's proactively trying to solve somebody else's problem who's already on a platform, it's not Bitcoin, it's not Discover Card, but it is another currency. I think that you could make a lot of hay with this thing. But to be passive about it, I think would be more difficult. But if somebody's active about it, I think it's a database of all these people who are already telling you that they pay with Trade Bank.
And this is why I love you, because you have a brain that thinks around things. You're kind of like a juggernaut of thought, and you're able to read people. Even just talking about how people describe directions, you ascertain their personality traits. There's like a psychologist in you or something. I don't know if that was you. Did you major in that in college or something?
I didn't major in college. I have a worthless degree from college, but I do have a strong background in neuro-linguistic
programming
or patterning, whatever you want to call it. So how people articulate their feelings and expressions with words.
Yeah. Even body language.
Words is something that's really easy. I can look at an email and I can tell somebody, I can figure out what they're about. Mm-hmm. So how we talk is our inner dialect. And if you can use somebody's inner dialect to understand what the nuances are, then you're just going to be in a little bit deeper level of rapport. And I seek to be in a deeper level of rapport. I was talking with somebody yesterday, and she was talking to me how people's bodies vibrate and have a harmonic that actually reacts to other people and chemicals and food. And I was like, oh my God, that's so in line with what I think, because I talk about talk in a way that resonates with your prospect or your audience. In a boy-girl situation, you have to talk in a way that resonates with the person who you're trying to go after. So, so I pick up on those things, and I see the nuances, kind of like pictures in the sky. I feel like I see the nuances in things and how they relate. And
well, they teach a lot of that in the sales business. They talked to us.
Get in rapport.
Yeah. For us in Mercedes, they taught us about VAC, visual, auditory, kinesthetic. And you could tell a lot by a customer by the language they would use and how they would want to experience a vehicle.
Yeah, it's actually VACOG.
VACOG?
Yeah. Visual, auditory, kinesthetic is a K. Mm-hmm. Do you know what the O is?
No.
Oh, that doesn't smell like a good deal.
So
it's olfactory.
Really?
G. Do you know
how often did you get people wanting to use their? I mean, unless they want to smell the new car smell. Right?
Some people are turned off by smells, and you have to be very, very cognizant of that. And so they're high olfactory, but they'll talk in words of the guy had made me squirm. He's kind of fishy.
Yeah.
What's fishy? What's a fish in the ocean's fine, but a fishy that's dead and stinking is bad. Yeah. So it's an olfactory. So
reminds me of a wharf.
Yeah, something like that. So what's G then?
I don't know.
Gustatory.
Gustatory?
Yeah, the guy I just didn't get a good taste in my mouth about that deal.
Oh, so taste.
Taste. It's
Really?
it's rare. So the olfactory.
So all the five senses.
Yeah, exactly. So in there, the O and the G, the olfactory, like people who use smell words to describe their feelings or situation, or gustatory words, which is taste words to describe the feeling, they're out there.
Yeah.
You'll see great poems about them. Mark Twain is a great user of it, but it's not common. But when you recognize it and you use it back on people, they're like, oh, you're one of me. They resonate with you.
It reminds me of a story from a book called How to Take on the Big Boys and Win.
I've seen the title. I've never read the book. What's it about?
Yeah, it was about a local electrical distributor who had to fight Home Depot that moved in across the street. So they catered, Home Depot was trying to steal some of the contractor business, but, they're not going to do it as well as an electrical distributor that has the depth of knowledge and the parts that they can get at an electrical distributor. But still, it probably took 25% of their business when Home Depot, a behemoth, opens, right? So they decided to do exactly that, appeal to all five senses. Literally, when you walked in, they made sure it was comfortable, that when the guys were getting their parts, they could sit down at the counter. They had the tactile, like new tools they could use and play with, things that they could play with their hands. They had cookies constantly in the oven to smell.
Yeah, I get it.
And taste. Coffee that was constantly brewing. They always had music playing for,
It was the Apple store of electrical parts.
Yeah. Site-wise, if it was, depending on what time of the year it was, they would have certain lighting, Christmas time, maybe Christmas lights, Halloween, maybe different kinds of lighting or decorations. So they really just capitalized and honed in on the experiential aspect of the customer service experience.
What's interesting is that type of model, people try and play it out in all kinds of situations. Ferrari is a good example of this. Rolls-Royce is a great example of this. Like high-end brands, Cartier watch is a great example of this. And what's interesting is there's some people who are totally down for the experience. Like they will obviously always pay more for the experience. And then there are people who are totally transactional, where it doesn't matter if they get a free cup of coffee with their parts. They just want the parts at the cheapest price possible.
Right.
But you have in the middle ground, you have these people who I call them semi-malleable. And so if they get the experience that they want to get, then they can actually be persuaded to spend 5%, 10%. They're not going to spend 100% more, but they'll spend 5 or 10, 12% more. They say 12 is like the max. More for that experience, and I think that is absolutely true. Like
there's a tactile, they could feel it. That's the difference between the Mercedes dealers here in town. Yep. One is very price driven, and the other is very experience driven.
And what's very, very interesting about this type of selling sequence or scenario or style, it is the company that sells at a slightly higher margin to every single person, let's say 10%, 12% on average higher to every single person, they don't need to spend as much money in marketing because they don't need to have as many customers because their margin is just really good.
Yeah.
They
have that, and plus they got customers who are flaming advocates that do the advertising for them.
Exactly. Like, I don't need to see an ad from this company. I'm going to come back. So it's a very interesting marketing and sales strategy that I think works in some places. It doesn't work in all places, but
even with the margin, they're able to spend money on advertising so they get more exposure. Even if they're putting money, like for our example, for the Mercedes dealer that I work with, we're constantly putting up content on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. The other dealer doesn't do that because they're cutting their legs off before the car even gets to the lot.
Yeah. And it could be something their marketing is the barbecue truck that comes on Saturday and it just come over and just grab a plate. Like there's all kinds of ways we can spend money in marketing that actually translates into the ROI of it.
But even spending it on the employees, every time I go into the dealership, they've always got like food or treating the employees to lunch or whatever. For us, what we remember in the car business is Saturdays. The dealership would buy pizza. Most likely, was that your experience? So
we weren't allowed to leave for lunch on Saturdays or Sundays.
Right.
So we would have any number of things from what's the chicken place that has El Pollo Loco?
Yeah.
Sandwiches, pizza. We would have any number of things, and you'd have your 11 minutes to go eat, and then you'd be back on the line because.
Yeah.
Hey, do you know why you can't have car salespeople go to lunch? Like leave to go to lunch on Saturdays?
Well, I mean, it was because you wanted to be there and have an opportunity.
They would never come back. They would just leave and go for the day. They would go on.
I've never had that experience at the dealership.
That's the fear. Yeah, that's fear.
I mean, we the last iteration of my career in that business, I was able to. I had a lot of freedom. You know, they had a lot more career-minded people at the dealership until they started jicky-jacking with the culture. You know, on Saturdays, every other Saturday, when I first got there, every other it was just, hey, what are we having this Saturday? And eventually it just came down to we're just having, you know, Domino's or whatever. And it was always cardboard pizza with, you know, you might as well just put crackers and cheese and tomato ketchup on a cracker.
That's funny. So here's a little segue for us. So it's interesting. You and I, being from the sales business, and we both kind of in that marketing space, the nuances around what, like in today's culture, the getting people to say yes to your job that you're offering. It's just a job, it's a career, whatever it is. Like the culture is one thing, like we talk about in B&I, what are the benefits you can offer and provide people that make them want to stay? It's very, very interesting. At like something like a Mercedes dealership where you didn't have to buy any of your own shirts. So you're always repping Mercedes gear. Right. Like that's a cool thing. Mm-hmm. That's a cool thing. If you get the swag from your company and it's good, we had one of my companies, we had really good Gore-Tex jackets.
Right.
Like it was a $300 jacket.
Yeah.
But
they gave it to you.
Yeah. And they gave it to us.
Yeah.
Because we're out in the rain.
Yeah.
And they didn't want cold, wet salespeople. So like whatever.
They took care of you.
They took care. And you can absolutely see when people are repping their company gear and it's like the cheapest shirt or the worst pen or something like that. Those are the kind of things that don't show up easily.
You know, if you're a customer of a dealership and you see that kind of experience, you see, the salespeople that aren't being trained, they seem kind of wet behind the ears. Maybe they're kind of sketchy, but like what you're talking about, cheap clothing, you know, you can grind them down on price because they're not holding their value.
This is it's hard to express this in today's society because there's so many limitations on what we can actually talk to people about being disciplined. So we're super disciplined on what we can't say.
Yeah.
Like if there was somebody who had bad hygiene at one of my dealerships, they'd be sent home. You're not allowed to show up with, like an ugly beard.
Right.
This sounds terrible, like neck hair. They'd send you home. If you had a terrible tie, they would cut the tie in front of you and make you go home and get another tie.
Yeah.
And so everybody looked great because that was the culture. It was very, very...
What brand did you sell?
Toyota mostly. Mm-hmm. Several dealerships with Toyota. And then I finished up at San Jose, Audi and Porsche.
Well, Audi and Porsche, sure. Yeah. You know, you should have that kind of experience at a store like that.
You'd be surprised.
Toyota's hit and miss, you know.
I think that it depends on who's running the Toyota dealership. 100%.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah.
But it's an interesting thing whenever you go anywhere and you see the person who clearly, not only do they not care to shave, they are making it a point. Like you wear a beard, I wear a beard at times, where they make it a point to look as scruffy as possible.
Yeah.
Like I think that is absolutely hurting everybody's brand. Like it's a simple little nuanced thing.
Yeah.
You know, I wouldn't have people looking any way they want because it represents the brand. Yeah. Unless your brand doesn't matter, or if that is the brand, like a Starbucks coffee, you can look whatever way you want.
Yeah.
People are still going to buy it. But anyway, like I think there's little things that people can do around culture if they bring more discipline into the little things. Don't put tape on the windows because you got to scrape off the tape and it looks like junk if you leave it there. So anyway.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people are doing their shopping online, and I'll tell them right now. I mean, if you're shopping for a car, go look beyond just the inventory that they have or whatever specials. Go to the About Us page and see if they have a team page.
Yeah.
If they have one, go to it. Look to see if there are photos of the team. Okay. If they do, and if they've got a comprehensive team page put together, I think that's you're going into a good culture. Yep. If they don't have a team page, big red flag. Huge.
Unless it's just the general manager and the who is the person who handles all of the SSI scores?
Geez.
Like their HR marketing is, like they handle all the customer surveys and the customer feedback. Like that's super important for dealerships these days. Have you bought a car recently?
I'm actually, this Saturday we got to buy one.
Really?
Yeah.
What are you buying?
And yes, I bought one back in October.
Okay. What are you buying?
We're buying my wife's car off of lease.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So, but to go to a dealership to go buy a car, have you done that recently?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I had a friend of mine tell me about the experience that they just had buying a car, and I have to buy a car here pretty soon as well. like the over MSRP on some vehicles is because they don't have any coming, and like for 6 months, where they're going to make all 6 months of revenue on the person who wants that car right now. It's crazy.
Right.
It's completely foreign from when I was in the car business. Like we had too much.
It depends on what you're buying.
Yeah.
You know, what do you think you're buying?
Probably an Expedition Max. My
Let's
wife,
say a Ford dealer.
yeah, I mean, it'll be, I'll probably buy something 2 years old, 3 years old. There's a really big let off on that vehicle right now around that 35 to 45,000 mile mark.
Right.
And I think that it's a great value.
Is it certified pre-owned? Do you like buying certified?
Yeah, I don't have a problem with buying used. I mean, ultimately, I don't think it needs to be certified. I think if you just get the right warranty on it, I am one of those people. If I can't afford the car with the warranty, I won't buy the car.
Yeah.
I always buy the warranty because I've seen people have $8,000, $10,000 dollar bills go away because they had the warranty.
Yeah.
And I've seen people who have $8,000 or $10,000 bills in the service shop a day.
Yeah.
After their warranty when it expired, and
Just keep it under warranty.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're machines.
Yeah,
They're not guaranteed.
Like I don't want to be like a finance guy selling it, but yeah, buy a warranty and they're okay.
Well, and understand that even when you get into the what they call the box, it's you can still negotiate. So,
Yes. So problem.
Yeah.
Help me out with this one here. So interest rates have gone up. I think you said that you experienced that when you're buying a car. It's no longer like 0.9% financing for 84 months.
Hell, I would have been happy with 2 or 3%.
Yeah. It's interesting. Like generally speaking, I don't see automobile manufacturers giving away the rate like they used to.
Right.
They are all in the finance business. They just want to sell you an $80,000 truck because that's a $80,000 worth of 7% interest, which I can't believe trucks are that much money. But so in my business, if you haven't heard, interest rates have gone up quite a bit in the last year since we've last talked, right? Since last year, July, I'll just give you some referential points. So last July, I would have quoted somebody 5.25% to buy a building, 25-year term.
Yeah.
And if I sold them that loan then, and it was an adjustable rate mortgage on the building, so it'd be prime plus, let's say 2,
Right.
2.5. Prime is now 8.
Yeah.
Plus 2 is 10. Plus 2.5 is 10.5. So they went from 5.5% interest on $2, $3, $4 million to 10 to 10.5, 11% on $2, $3, $4 million.
Yeah.
Trying to, my problem is being able to use the right words to tell people that is a good deal right now.
It is a good deal right now. It just is. I mean, it's
could go higher, but
Yeah.
if the deal doesn't make sense at that number, and I'm telling people all the time, like if it doesn't make sense right now, it won't make sense at 8% or 7%. It shouldn't be that thin of a margin. I've had to tell several people to just pause on their lending. And then there's people who freak out, and this is maybe what you have the idea for. So the people who freak out, they see the business that they want to acquire, the building they want to buy, and the numbers, their revenue goes up, their net profits go up, but they're so stuck on interest rate. How do you tell people if you're in the business of cars, they have to get a car, they have to get a Mercedes Sprinter van or something like that because that's exactly what they have to have for business, but the rate is so big. Like, what do you do when people are locked up on that?
You got to tell them that whatever you're using it for, you got to make sure that you're justifying it, cost of justifying it. You know, it's a matter of, everything is going up. You're paying more for everything. That means you got to be charging accordingly too, depending on what you're doing. If you're buying a business, I mean, what does Cardone always talk about? He goes out and he buys a property, goes through and immediately raises the rent.
Yep.
He raises it an extra, $100 a month or $200 a month per unit. And, he's unabashed about it.
Yep.
He completely puts it out there. Even when he had good interest rates, I'm sure he's still doing that. You got to justify your cost.
Yeah. So it's interesting that you justify the cost. Money to me, nobody wants a loan.
Yeah.
Nobody wants SBA. Nobody wants USDA. Nobody wants, fintech or an investor, but they want what the money does for them. And I'm trying to have this conversation more elegantly and better. And money, like I mentioned earlier, it's no different than the cost of tomatoes. It's the cost of ground beef. It's the cost of diesel. It's whatever it is that it takes you to run your business has gone up. Mm-hmm. Like what in your business has gone up? Probably the price of steel has gone crazy if you're using steel, or the price of copper has gone up and down here and there. So ultimately, money's just It's just a tool. It's just no different than a wheelbarrow or a rake. And so for those of you out there who are listening, like my problem is telling people that 10% is still good if it's good and 10% is bad if it's bad. I mean, it seems kind of like a duh statement, but don't get so fixated on the rate.
Well, rates are going to fluctuate anyway. Even if it is an adjustable rate, then, hey, if the rates go down, great, then your payment goes down.
Yeah. All right, so true story. So I have a customer right now, and I'm going to use this example. You'll see it next week in BNI. I think the best option for them is to go with 33% interest. And they looked at me and they thought I was talking crazy. And I said, well, here's the actual difference. 33% interest, 1-year term, 11% 10-year term, or 7% 30-year term. And I said, what was their problem? Their problem was they were locked up on interest rate. They had the money, and this money was going to bring them back the money within 12 months. They were going to make the money back plus probably 200%. So it didn't matter. So I think that your most important thing is the total cost of capital. And when you borrow $100,000 at 33% for a year, your payback total is $116. When you borrow $100,000 and you pay back as 10 years, your payback is like $158. When you borrow $100,000, let's say for a home line of credit or a refinance of your house, 30-year term at 7%, your total payback is like $239.
Yeah.
So like, what do you actually like? What is the important thing? And ultimately, every single person is different. Some people can't handle a $9,000 payment. Some people need a $600 payment. So interest rate isn't everything. It is just one of the pieces and parts of the equation. You're getting an insider scoop right now.
I am?
You're welcome.
You're welcome.
Like in Moana.
I like it. I could see what you're talking about. It may seem like really steep on the front end, but you're paying a lot less over the long term. But, if it's a simple interest loan, and they can get on the 30 and only pay a certain amount of interest. That's why I'm looking at our deal going into it on Saturday. I'm like, we may only keep the car another 6 months or something. Yep. So it's just, Yeah,
there are
and the car is actually worth more than what we're paying for it.
Yeah.
So
that's a great deal. Like I used to tell people about the lease all the time.
We got the lease back in 2020.
Giving them away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, the residual on it was next to, hardly anything.
Yeah.
So and now you can't buy that car for, it's $20,000 more than what our residual is. Right.
Man.
It's crazy.
That's a good deal.
Like, and we were looking at it. Well, my wife likes the car. We could buy a brand new, less than car for my wife, brand new. But she's like, we're not going to get a car like this.
Would you buy your car now for the price that you can buy for it? You're like, oh my God, if your neighbor sold that car, would you buy it? Like, oh my God, totally.
Yeah.
Then buy your own car.
Yeah. But and you still have the option. I've always said, well, you can always just sell it. Yeah. We're going to probably unload a camper here, our camper that we've had for the past 5 years because we never use it. But we'll probably get out for what we paid for it. It's an in-demand camper.
What kind of camper?
It's a hybrid. So it's got tent ends on 3 sides, and it's kind of like a pop-up because we went into it thinking we wanted a pop-up, and we didn't immediately once we started thinking that direction, my wife is like, well, I want a bathroom. Okay, now the wheels are turning.
Yeah.
So we go look at them, and we open the door, and the bathroom, the toilet is like, one of these toilets that you have to lift out and dump out and carry it around, like what we had in our boat growing up. And it was right next to the stove. It's like, okay, you're basically shitting in the kitchen.
Oh my God.
We turn around.
I hear you're not supposed to do that.
Probably not. It's not very hygienic. We turn around and we look at exact kind of camper, but it's a hard shell with those bunk ends that a pop-up has. And I'm like, okay, what is that? And they said it's a hybrid. So we started doing our research on hybrids, and it was just a perfect marriage of best of both worlds. Courtney's a big tent camper. She loves being in a tent with the rain, and she loves the sound of it. And I would rather be off the ground and protected from grizzly bears in case someone attacks, and we're still behind, plywood. So,
lots of those in Tennessee.
Yeah. So that's where we kind of made that compromise.
Okay.
But because of the nature of campers are in tremendous demand right now. That's part of the problem is that we can't book a freaking campsite.
Are you serious?
They're booked out like a year.
So that's crazy.
Dude, if you had money to put into a campground in the past 3 years, you'd be freaking on Easy Street.
Yeah. But dude, on your property
Did I just say Easy Street? What am I, from 1922?
Hi, Dad.
Hi, how you doing? How you doing there, Shabby?
Dude, your little property here, aside from all the construction going on, like this is like you have a view, the back area here. You can just put up your little tent in the backyard and pretend there.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want me to play loud music until late at night, like I'm your camp neighbor, I can do that for you.
It's not the same as sitting on a lake, though.
This is not true. This is very true.
So the next trip we're taking is Father's Day. We're going out to a place in Smyrna, which is on just the southern point of Percy Priest Lake.
Yeah.
And it's a place we discovered years ago. We keep on going back, and every time we go back, the rates are getting higher and higher and higher. But we took the camper recently to Washington, D.C., and that was a 700-mile pull is a long trip. So we figured that we'd save money instead of Airbnb-ing. Mm-hmm. Well, we didn't take into consideration that every 200 miles you're filling up for gas. We had to take a break in the drive, so we had to buy 2 hotel rooms on each trip back and forth. All that stuff. It's like, okay, we just should have just gone with the Airbnb at this point. I would like a Class A camper at some point, like what I had.
Like a
motorhome. Yeah, like a bus.
Yeah.
That's the next step.
I like it.
Yeah.
Can I ask, what is the retail value of a camper like yours?
Right now, I mean, I don't know, 18, 19.
Okay. And what are you selling it for?
About 18, 19. I mean, retail, if you were to buy it new, okay. 26, 27.
There's definitely a person.
Maybe 30.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah. So ultimately, how is the camper is a great example of like supply and demand. Mm-hmm. That's another thing that is kind of impacting me as well. Like another problem I have is the number of people who want to buy buildings is more than the number of buildings that are for sale.
Yeah. That's been real estate for the past several years.
Exactly. And so again, that's how do you have somebody expand their business? How do you have somebody grow their operations and ultimately in some cases, really decrease their costs by buying a building? I've got a person who's condensing 3 offices into one. They were renting a corp yard for all of their equipment, and they're going to have a place where they don't have to rent the place for the corp yard. Everybody's in one place. Total streamlined operations, but they just grew and rented another building, but now they're going to be able to all in one. They're going to save a ton of money, but they just can't find something that is just like
around this area.
Yeah, it's not even this area, but around their area, but it's just not available. So, supply and demand, y'all, it is a real thing. It is out there. It is out there for sure.
It's a very basic law, but it's very applicable.
Yeah, we talked about earlier with the car business. Like there's some cars that are still 10,000 over MSRP.
Mm-hmm. That is actually being adjusted right now.
You think?
Yeah.
How so? I still see it.
I know Mercedes has got a tremendous push for their electric line that they're putting out now. So because of that, they're trying to get people more interested. So they're being more aggressive on pricing and rebates and things of that nature. So it just depends on what the brand wants to do, and a lot of them are going towards the electric solution at this point. And it just depends on what you're going for, what kind of vehicle, what kind of model.
I was selling Toyotas when the Prius first came out, and we had $4,000 or $5,000 up money. Yeah. The what people thought was their problem back then was the price of gas. This is back in California, and gas at that point was probably $3 or $4 a gallon. Like it wasn't even that big of a deal. And I would go through with people who were looking for a Prius where they thought the problem was paying money for gas, like too much. I'm paying so much money for gas. And I sold more Echoes and more Corollas than you can possibly think about, because you couldn't get a Prius. $5,000 up money. Now you have a $27,000 car that the price of gas, like you had to drive like 75,000 miles to make it even.
Right.
And so I would just sell like a $16,000 Corolla all day long.
Yeah.
So anyway, like some people think that
but you're still getting 35 miles per gallon out of a car like that.
Exactly. And here that was the math. And so it's an interesting thing. Sometimes, like the electric car from Mercedes, people think that the problem is that they're spending money for gas. But then when you, like in your Airbnb and the trailer situation, like you think you're going to save money with the trailer. And I find that it's amazing what people think oftentimes isn't really.
Right. They don't really do the true math.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You ever heard the quote from Roy Rogers that it's not what you don't know that's going to kill you? It's what you do know and you know for sure, but it just ain't so. That's the one that's going to get you. Like, where you're just going to, I would bet you $1 million. You're like, wow, I didn't know that Pluto wasn't a planet anymore. Like whatever the thing, you're like, where you're that many days old when you realize that, something wasn't the way it is. Anyhow, business owners struggle with that all the time. You probably hear it all the time. What I want is a full disco theater inside my car wash. really, is that what you really want?
Mm-hmm.
You know, sometimes people don't actually want that kind of stuff.
We've actually had an opportunity lately that's one of our largest, and my business partner was telling me about it, and he sent them the proposal. They had a huge facility, and by nature, the proposal was a 6-figure proposal, and he's like, I just feel like I'm going to have to peel him off the ceiling. I said, well, and he's a world-class salesman, so I'm not telling him anything he doesn't know.
Yeah.
But I guess remind him about the fundamentals that, look, just act like it's nothing.
It's nothing.
It's just a price. And if that's really expensive. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff in there.
Yep.
You're right. I mean, that's a big payment on this Mercedes. It's a Mercedes.
Yep. And so the great question that I ask people there. So I've heard it's a good question. I think it's a great question. I'm not saying to you this is a great question. So it sounds like you had a vision for what you thought this was going to be. Yeah. Well, tell me what that is.
Yeah.
And so clearly they had something in their mind of why they why it's too high or too low or too whatever.
Yeah.
And when they start articulating what they had as a vision, okay, cool. So if I can just do that, we have a deal. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Just go ahead and sign right there. Then we'll just do that.
Right.
Obviously, as long as it's reasonable and practical. But yeah, people always have, even if, I don't know how much I want to sell my camper for.
Yeah.
Would you sell for $3? Oh, I would never do that. Well, so clearly you have a
you
vision.
do. You have a ballpark.
You have a vision of what you think that should sell for.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Do you ever wish you could be back in the car business?
No, I mean, I've always said that if I had, I would do it for fun, and I would do it on my own terms. So I'd never minded being at the dealership. Is it out of the realm of possibilities? No, but I think if I were to get back into it, it would be a different capacity. It would likely be with the group I'm working with now.
Okay.
And I would be doing probably just more media production like I'm doing. Sure. But not, hey, if they needed an extra hand on a Saturday, let me know. I'll come in, I'll take some ups and, pay me whatever you pay me. And I'll just do it for fun.
Yeah.
Because when you do it for fun, the customer feels that, and they have fun with you, you're likely to make the sale. You're not making it out of desperation.
And what is that quote? If you could find a job that it feels like your hobby, then you won't have a job.
Right.
I think
this came up as a topic in the last episode with Ashley Harris. I say that I am in my, what is my phone ringing? Oh. Okay, I don't know who that is, but I can't turn it off. You got to love it when we're in the middle of things and things just happen. Why is that ringing? It shouldn't be ringing. But anyway, sorry.
That's right.
These things happen, and I just kind of leave it in. I'm in there. I have a philosophy that a lot of us in our age, we're in our have to years, our have to days that are working towards our get to years.
100%.
You know what I mean? I think I'm living both right now.
Okay.
You know what I mean? I love what I do. This is exactly who I am. Podcasting, getting on the phone with people, talking with them. A lot of my education I had in the car business plays a huge part in my life now. I'm able to go out. I just do my thing. I do me, and I'm getting to do this. I don't have to. I don't feel like I have to do this. It's not a pain in the butt. It's a lot of work, but.
Yeah. So I have a fantasy about opening up like a little mom and pop car dealership, just selling a few cars here and there.
Yeah.
Because I do like I think it's fun. I think like.
It is fun when you get into it and you don't,
when you're really solid, when you're really working with a person like a car broker. I don't know if that's even a thing anymore, but I think that'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It's interesting. The got to is a total mindset. And there's people like in networking, they I've got to go to this networking thing, or I get to, you could say the same thing for, I get to go to the gym, or I've got to go to the gym.
Right.
I get to take a cold shower, or I've got to take a cold shower. There's all these little things like I get to go on a date with my wife. I've got to go on a date. Words matter. Like we talked about this the entire show. Like words, the things that you're saying have impact internally and externally.
It does.
And when you can say that you have a bigger purpose or bigger vision, I think it's an amazing thing. So true story. When I moved to Murfreesboro almost 2 years ago, putting my trash cans out, I was late. I've been late putting my trash cans out since I was like 7. Like I just don't know. I don't remember days.
Just can't
and
get
so
it
I hear the
down.
freaking truck and I'm like, I'm running out to the curb. and I've got no shirt on, and I've got I've got shorts on, no socks. Like clearly I am that guy.
Yeah.
I run out there and I've got 2 trash cans, and I whistle for the guy, and he stops, and he gets out of his truck. He's like, "Hey man, welcome to the neighborhood," and all these things. And we just had, a minute chat. Like he didn't have time to dilly-dally. We talked for 2 minutes maybe. And I said, "You seem to really like he was a really, really amazing guy. He helped me, super helpful, all those things." Like I said, you seem to really like this job. He's like, "No, man, I hate being a garbage man." I was like, but, and I was really kind of floored.
Yeah.
And he's one of those guys who didn't love what he did.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Well, I'm just confused. Like, you know what? I love keeping my city clean.
That's the payoff.
The fact that I have to be a garbage man is terrible, but I get to, take care of my neighbors. I get to keep my city clean. I get to keep the trash out of the creeks, and I get to go home to my kids at 2:00. And I've never missed a baseball game in 22 years, but I hate my job. But I get to go to work every single." I was like,
"That's interesting."
Totally great perspective, right?
Yeah.
And he put the nuance on it, and I think this is something This could be another podcast all in itself. The lie that we tell people that they have to love what they do for income,
right,
is a lie.
Be passionate about it. I'm like, this came up in the last episode too. She says, "Well, I just love what I do." I get that you love what you do. She's like, "Well, you just got to be passionate about it." I said, "Well, what happens when the passion runs out?"
Then you hate it.
Yeah, and I said, I teach my kids to be self-aware.
Yeah.
I said, that's a lot of what's missing in modern education is the self-awareness factor.
Absolutely.
Okay. And I don't care if my kids go to college. I really don't. My daughter is very interested in it now. We're exploring the different pathways that she can take. But I tell her, if you get a free ride somewhere all day long, yes, go do that. But and you don't need. I don't care if you know why you're going, but one of the reasons why you're going is to make a network and start networking with people.
Undervalued.
Right.
You don't go to college just for your network. And that I said earlier, I have a very, very low value degree. I think that they shouldn't even have some of the degrees that are out there.
An LVD?
What's that?
Low value degree.
Oh yeah, I have one of those. Yeah. It's interesting. So the passion that my garbage guy has was the same type of passion that my father had. So my father passed away a bunch of years ago, but he worked at Lockheed for like 20 something years on missiles.
Yeah.
He was in the Navy, got a job with Lockheed, just kind of worked there, and was a missile technician. Mm-hmm. So I have no idea what my dad actually did for work.
Yeah.
We never talked about it, not once. He told me how much he hated it, because it was working for the government type and all these things. And I was like, well, when he was later in life, I said, "Why did you work at Lockheed all those years?" He's like, "Because it afforded me the chance to do the things I wanted to do."
Yeah.
He's like, it wasn't fun. I was bored. It was awful. But I knew that I had to do what I didn't want to do to succeed.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to be turning the nuts and the bolts and doing the wiring on a Trident missile for 22 years.
It gets old.
Yeah. But the same thing for the people who are in Detroit making cars, or they're in Columbia here. They're about ready to start making a bunch of batteries at the GE plant or GM plant. Sometimes you don't need to have passion about what you do that makes you money. You have to have passion outside of it. And that's where people get kind of thrown off. If you can have passion outside of what you're doing at work, you are the best mom or best dad, or you're the best volunteer, or you're the best youth pastor, or you're the best whatever outside of your job. Your job just allows you to do what you want to do.
It's a means to an end.
And it takes a little bit of humbleness in order to understand that, you know what? This does suck. The cold shower does suck. Waking up early, going to the gym does suck. Driving the speed limit does suck. Not driving while eating a burger and texting does suck.
Yeah.
Go into your kids' band, first year band recitals.
Yeah.
That sucks. But those are the things that you have to do.
That's an honest truth right there, man. And it's like you never tell your kid that, but
I tell so. It's going to be on record. My kids will see this at some point in my life, maybe. I have, and whatever we say, we get.
For us parents, if your kids are listening, and my kids hear this someday, you'll understand what we're talking about when you have kids.
Yes.
The joy comes in seeing you try. Okay.
Not the results.
Right. Not the results, not the sound of how the band is or anything like that. It's a joy for us to see you involved in something and trying, just immersing yourself into something and learning something new.
100%.
Yeah.
So two of my things that grate on me more than anything, I just have a hard time with it. It's little kids singing and little kids playing instruments.
Yeah.
And so there's this process of learning an instrument. My daughter plays, one of my daughters plays the flute. And so she practices and she's, good. She's on, she does a thing, but still she's a 12-year-old playing the flute, right? It's not like Mozart's playing a flute. So it is in those moments where you cannot recognize the result, like you can't measure it on the result of how it sounds. You have to measure and this is like fantasy football. You have to look at the process. The process is my daughter is practicing something. Mm-hmm. She's not good at it.
Yeah.
But every single time she practices, she gets a little bit better and she wants to practice. Though that grit and determination of wanting to practice volleyball or wanting to go out and play catch with me, with my son, wanting to have, Dad, are you coming to my music recital? Yeah. You know what I take from that, regarding, I'm measuring the results. I hate the sound of it. But what my daughter's really telling me, Dad, I'm doing something that I'm proud of.
Yeah.
That is hard. It's not easy. And I'm getting better. And I want to show you my accomplishment.
Right.
And
there's the joy for us.
That's the joy for us. Because if you have one of those kids, and I feel bad for the parents who have a bump on a log for a kid.
Yeah.
There's lots of them out there. We know what they look like and sound like. Well, they don't sound like anything. They're just a bump on a log. But they don't do anything. Nothing inspires or makes them passionate. They're not willing to fight past any kind of difficulty. I fear for human culture. I fear for the U.S. economy, for all of the people who are not motivated to do something more than once. If they don't succeed the first time, they're like, "That's boring. It's done. I suck at it." I
have a lot more
tough.
faith in that than you do.
You do. Tell me why.
Because I think people will figure it out at some point. Some people are, and I look at my own life because I was similar to that kind of archetype that you're talking about, bump on the log.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah. I mean, I always knew I was a drummer since I was probably 6 or 7 years old when MTV came out, and I saw the guys, Van Halen and everything, and I saw, wow, that's interesting how this guy's just bashing away. He's got his arms crossed on the hi-hat and the snare and stuff like that. So I started imagining myself playing the drums, told my mom, hey, I want to play the drums. She was like, you want to play an instrument? We'll get you a saxophone. Okay. How is that? Now I look back on it, I wish I would have, okay, how is that different? Well, it's not as loud. Really? A saxophone. You want to hear squeaky notes,
Let's get it on.
Okay. So we did that for 6 months and it didn't take root. And then they finally got around to getting me a drum set in maybe 8th or 9th grade. And I like a fish to water. And that was my identity for the next 10 years.
But that's passion towards a thing that you weren't good at.
But I knew, but the drums I was good at out of the gate.
Really?
Yes. I wasn't. They complained about the volume and the banging of the drums, but it wasn't like you were listening to just haphazard sounds. It was, I was playing beats. I knew how to play them.
It wasn't modern jazz out of your trumpet.
No, I was playing rock. And the first song I played was Jump by Van Halen.
It's a great song.
Yeah. So, I knew how to play it because I imagined myself playing it over and over and over again. I put the books on the bed. I had my brother's, timpani mallets, and I would use whatever I could and I knew how to play, and right from the get-go.
So,
because this is natural to me.
Right. But that personality type you're talking about there is counter to what I'm thinking. The person who are not motivated by books. They're not motivated by sports. They're not motivated by band. They're not motivated by drama. They're not motivated by anything.
You're talking about somebody to overcome challenges and
anything,
sandpaper times in their process, and they kind of abandon it. For me, those things did happen in the drumming, and it was who I influenced by. I would listen to Van Halen, then all of a sudden I got turned on to Rush, and my level of playing just escalated from there, and I started listening to all sorts of other drummers, and I started adopting different things, but it still took work, but I loved doing it.
So mine was a baseball.
Right.
So Rush, I hear that they are the most technically capable band ever.
Only because there was 3 guys.
And they all had doctorates in music.
I don't know about that.
I think so. I think what they did with their instruments was
probably on that level.
Yeah.
But I don't know if they've actually had formal doctorates.
Okay, take a look.
Yeah.
So I would take a rubber ball and throw it against my garage door hundreds and hundreds of times.
Yeah.
Do you know what a ball sounds like when it hits your garage door? It sounds like the house is being shot by a 50 caliber rifle.
Yeah.
My mom,
howitzer.
yeah, my mom would just understand that was my thing, and I would just go out there and play. But the people who are adults who are wayward, who don't have who don't have purpose, and so there's no process to get to a purpose.
Yeah.
It's Gary Vee. Like, we're both big fans of Gary Vee. Where he probably will never buy the Jets, but he is working towards buying the Jets, and he's enjoying the process of working towards the Jets.
But I think a lot of it is a question of maturity, because I know there was a time in my life where I challenged myself to learn different things. When I got into radio, it overtook my life. It became a lifestyle. I wanted, I was passionate about it. I wanted to learn more and more about how to produce audio, I wasn't necessarily big on being an on-air guy. Maybe you think differently with the way I do my thing here on podcasting. But again, that came with maturity. Yeah. My gift of gab didn't happen until I was, maybe 10, 15 years ago. But that took life. It took life experience. My son, anything he tries, he gets really good at. Okay, so, drumming, he was really good at it from the get-go. Then that turned into playing the piano right out of the box. He was amazing at it. He started producing music. He started getting, learning how to use DAWs and things of that nature. He started playing baseball. He's got an arm on him, but it came so easily to him that I think he got bored very quickly. Yeah. So right now he's into chess. He likes to play chess. The dude's amazing.
How old is he?
He's 14.
So my 12-year-old son, same thing.
Is that something that's happening with the kids now, like chess?
So I think that the access to chess is, it can be electronic.
Yeah.
It doesn't require, any type of outside thing.
Yeah.
You could be talking and working with your buddies who are across the street or across the world. So I think that there's kind of an interesting component there. And it is truly mano a mano, man.
Yeah.
Like my son, he's 12. He beat me 2 games in a row in chess.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to buy a book on chess, or I'll never beat him again.
My son likes to play with me, and I always tell him, because he taught me how to play.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I've never known how to play. I was here's one case in point. While I was in radio, and I was at I-95 in Connecticut, because at the time, radio had become digitized, and all of us jocks, we didn't have to pull any discs anymore or carts or, pull our hour of music. It was all on the computer. So you had a 40-minute sweep to just twiddle your thumbs and prepare for the next break. But that took maybe 30 seconds to talk about what you were talking about, see what was coming up. And then, okay, now what do I do? Because it's all automated. Yeah. It was just, you were just there to take phone calls and whatever. So I challenged myself to learn how to play checkers to the best of my ability. So I'd go on Yahoo Checkers back in the day, and play with anybody who was on, and just learn how. I got really, really good because I just want to get good at checkers. I don't know why. And then my son, now fast forward, he wants to get good at chess. He said, "Dad, play chess with me." Spencer, I don't know how to play. I'll teach you. All right. So he taught me. Yeah. The kid taught me how to. I'm like, dude, isn't that cool? You taught your dad how to play chess. That's. I hope you remember that, and I want you to acknowledge that I don't need to know everything. I don't need to impart my wisdom to you. You taught me how to play, and now it must be boring for you because you kick my ass every time. You know?
My son, and I'll tell you what he did in a second. So, I played baseball at a high level, so I can throw hard. I can catch pretty much every ball that's thrown at me. My son, he throws it over my head and it hits my shins like on the regular. He knows that he's not to my level, but he enjoys me playing catch, and I enjoy playing catch with him.
Yeah, father son have a catch.
So, and I don't I don't just gun it at him. I throw it at his level.
Yeah.
All right. So my son's playing chess with me. This is a couple weeks ago, and I see my moves, and I realize I'm running out of time. Like my goose is cooked.
Yeah.
And so. And I only have probably 2 moves in advance. Like that's how far I can think. Like I barely 2 moves. And so I said, okay. And so I move, and I said, if I move here, I have to hope that he doesn't see this, and he doesn't move here. And so I do the move, and he looks right at me, and he looks back at his thing, and he makes a move, and he doesn't take that move.
He went easy on you.
He went easy.
My son does the same thing.
And it's just like my son when I'm playing catch with him. He doesn't have to ask me, "Hey, Dad, why don't you throw it as hard as you possibly can at me?"
Right.
It's because I want the game to extend. I want to play with you. We were playing a little more. He gets a little further, and he actually ends up checkmating me. I said, "Hey, man, you had me like 8 moves ago. Why didn't you take me then?" He's like, "I just like playing chess with you."
Right.
And I was, dude, as a father, I melted. I was like, "That's cool."
That is cool.
I called to him a couple days later. "Hey, man, I'm home early. You want to go play chess? I'm sorry, you want to go play catch? Let me get my shoes. I'll be right down." My son doesn't get right down for anything.
Yeah.
And he, boom, shoes on, right down, and we started playing catch. And my mom was there, and so my mom, obviously, she watched me playing, sports, and now my son is really going to become I think a fine pitcher this year. He's finally growing into his body. He's a baby giraffe out there, but he's getting a little bit less wobbly. And it was just so cool. Like, I take it easy on him when it's appropriate, and he takes it on me when it's appropriate. Like, I let him punch me every now and then every now and then I punch him back, like just where we're just playing around. And we have this appreciation for the other person's skill level. So like, that's cool.
Yeah.
But he has like that passion for chess. Like, he's
good for him.
He'll do like, "So Dad, I'm going to do the Swiss G on you." And he does like this move. He's like, "That's the Swiss G." I was like, "What the hell's that?"
My son, he's like, "It's your move to open up the game." And I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I move one of the pawns. He's like, Queen's Gambit. And I'm
yes. Yeah, exactly. He's calling out my moves for me.
and I'm looking at him going, okay, and it's in the beginning, he kind of got a little, bold, and he would kind of get cocky, and I had to kind of check him and say, "Listen, I don't mind playing with you, but if you're going to be obnoxious about it, it's not fun for me."
Yeah.
Okay. I don't need to be made feel like an idiot.
Yeah.
I know I'm not good at this game. I said, but I tell you, I appreciate the fact that you are thinking 4, 5, 6 moves ahead, because that's going to help you. You are hardwiring that into your brain right now while it's still not hardwired. And that is going to come into value. And getting back to what we started talking about this, your faith versus my faith about humanity. They say that hard times create tough men create good times create weak men create hard times.
Yes.
I believe we're in that transition right now. Weak men create hard times.
Yes.
I think that our generation, our kids' generation, the next generation is going to be that generation of tough men that creates good times. And here's the reason why.
All right.
And I think you need to have faith in the next generation coming up. Your son, my son, being able to think 5 moves ahead, that's going to stay with them.
Mercy.
Yeah.
Our sons showed us mercy when they didn't. And so my son, it's very interesting that they're so similar. So we're playing chess, and when we were playing, he was beating me, and he was like mocking me. Same thing. And I said, "Nathan, when we put on the boxing gloves, do I mock you or do I play at your level?" "Well, you play at my level." It's like, "What would happen if I didn't play at your level?" You would clean my clock." It's like, yeah. And so I'm teaching my son humbleness. You're teaching your son humbleness, which is a huge skill that so many people don't have. Yeah. I tell my kids all the time that humbleness is such a great skill. In fact, I am the most humble person that I know.
I'll be happy to tell you that.
Exactly. That's what
I have a ton of integrity.
Exactly.
Just
trust me. Yeah. So interesting. Like, I think you're right. So I'm teaching my son to be tough, minded, spirited. If he doesn't get something, he has to persist. There's like, we don't like giving up. There is no giving up, unless it makes sense. Like, I think the idea of you have to do everything and never quit is also a fallacy. I've quit from jobs, I've quit from things, and it was the best decision possible. I think we should know when to quit. We're not taught when to quit. We're either told to grind ourselves into the ground, into oblivion on a worthless cause or a sinking or sunk ship. But elegantly stopping something pivoting is a skill.
My problem.
Okay.
Here's my problem as of late.
Ladies and gentlemen, Jim McCarthy, what is your problem?
You take a lot of different notes from people over time, and the late great Phil Valentine told me, because he raised his kids. He's got a great set of kids. He passed in 2021, I want to say, or maybe 2022. But I've met his son, Campbell, and had both of them on the podcast. They both did a podcast together. But we talked about raising kids and stuff like that. And he would tell me some stories that his kids did coming up they're hilarious. How creative his kids would think. But I'm like, dude, as a father, in the moment, you got to be like, what the hell are you thinking? Yeah, it's kind of funny, but I got to, at least crack the whip to let you know that that's not kind of cool.
Yeah.
And he's like, sometimes you just got to let them be kids, man. You just got to he says, you just got to trust in the fact that they're going to figure it out. Like, for example, my son helped me out with a lot of editing with my voiceover stuff lately for the past several years, earned himself a good amount of money. Tried to discipline him on spending and habits and things of that nature. It got to the point where I probably fired him 5 or 6 times, from doing this. This last time, it's like, okay, I can't keep having you do this, and screwing it up and potentially costing us the client, And I just didn't tell him this time. So I just silently took back over the editing process of my stuff. And I'm at the point, he's never brought it up. My wife's like, well, aren't you going to tell him? I'm like, no, I don't think I am. Because if he doesn't bring it up to me, well, he's scared. I'm like, there's no reason to be scared. I'm not treating him any differently. I'm still giving him love. I'm still talking to him, hanging out with him. I've not brought it up. If he does bring it up and be like, okay, well, this is the first time you brought it up. It tells me a lot if you don't bring it up. You don't really want to do it. That's okay. Mm-hmm. That's okay. I'll take care of it. It's not a big deal. If you ever decide you're maturing in this process right now, and at some point you're going to realize, well, hey, I had it pretty good doing that. Maybe you have to go and get a different job just to see what things are like.
Oh, yeah.
In that process, you're going to find out for yourself. Some people just have to learn in their own way. I would rather not fight you on this and ruin our relationship. I'm going to work with you on it. Like we should have him mowing the lawn. I'm not going to fight him on it because, that's going to be a fight. Go out and mow the lawn. Go out and mow the lawn. Go out. I just don't want to fight with you. I'd rather preserve our relationship for the future that, in these years where it's very like these formative years, that you remember a fruitful relationship with me instead of a,
yep.
That's kind of, I'm conflicted there where, well, maybe sometimes you got to put the pressure on. But at the same time, it's like, no, you're going to figure this out. I have all faith in you that you're going to figure this out. I'd rather you know who you are. If you decide that you want to mow the lawn one day because you're big and strong and you're getting big and strong, dude, have at it.
Yeah.
In the meantime, I don't mind doing it. I would love it if you would do it and you'll get paid for it. And that should be your motivation. But I don't want to have to force you to do it. That's what we did when we were kids. They have chores and stuff like that. But I'm to the point where I just don't want to fight with them.
Yeah, I think it's part of the parenting. Like, do you get training on when to give up? You're quitting the idea of making your kid do this. Like, it's okay to quit. Mm-hmm. It's okay to make somebody else quit. Like my son, he has a little lawn mowing business, and some of the people want him to edge the lawns. So I have a gas edger. I think that edger is a little bit more complicated than a lawnmower. I had to teach my son. He's 12, and I think he's about ready to handle it. Here's how you edge. This is why it feels good going right to left. And this is why it doesn't feel good going left to right. All these little things. This is because the thing's spinning this way. And blah, 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 blah. And he was doing it, and I said, Nathan, stop. Look at the results. You have poor results. Go back and do it again. And I'm just walking with him. We walked my entire property. It's not a huge property, but it's got a lot of curb. And at some point, it's like, does it really need to be this perfect? And it's like, if you're going to be in the business, it does need to be this perfect.
You have to establish your autopilot level.
You just get to the point where you're good enough to just walk fast and just go do it. And it'll make your job easier by knowing how to do it and why these things are, why is it difficult to go this way? And why are you, all these things. It is okay for my son to, at some point, quit his lawn mowing business, but right now it is what he's doing. Yeah. He mows our lawn because it's his chore, but he always mows other people's lawns because they're on the street and they could do it, but they'd rather pay him $15 or $20 because they don't want to do it, and $15, $20 is a great deal.
Yeah.
So it is in those things as parents where we have to not parent every single moment. Mm-hmm. Like if you're trying to correct your kid at every single thing that they do wrong, part of their job is to learn their boundaries. Like, what can I get away with? Here's something I'll ask you. What is my problem? My problem is that my kids take food into their room. Their rooms are upstairs, and we say no food upstairs. We have this rule, please, no food upstairs. You know, my wife does not want insects. She thinks that food in the room brings insects, which is probably not far from the truth. We have a dog. My dog finds everything to eat.
Yeah.
And so we don't want the dog to be eating all their food. I'm just getting mad thinking about it. We'll go into our kids' room and say, hey, it's time to clean up, and we're going to help you clean up. And we're like, oh, no, I got it. And so now we know we're onto something when they say they don't want our help to clean the room. And we start turning over like the sheets and the pillows and the drawers. And there's food wrappers, and there's like a bowl of like, that was, Cheerios, like it's now gone, but like it's been in there for a little bit. And we get so mad. Like, if you're going to break the rules, if you're going to push the boundaries, could you at least not put the wrapper to the lollipop underneath your pillow?
Yeah.
We have like 15 trash cans in this house. I'm not going to know if you throw it away in some other trash can.
Right.
Like, there's a time and a place to, like, you have to teach your kids, like, this is how you live life.
Yeah.
There's taxes that are by the book, and then there's going to jail for taxes, and then there's like a little gray area where, like, this is how most people do their taxes. So like, there's just don't get caught. Come on, like, just don't be so dumb that you get caught. Like, that just drives me crazy when they're just oblivious to the fact that they're going to get caught.
Maybe we just need to make a parenting podcast and talk about, dad stuff.
Oh, I think that would be fine. I don't know that, like, I bring some measure of success there. I've got 3. I think they're very, very well-adjusted kids. Have you ever met somebody who's a parent who just says, "Oh, I'm killing this. I'm such a great parent"?
No, they all think they're screwing the kids up.
Yeah.
And I had a meeting actually yesterday with Jim Morris.
Okay.
And he was talking about, a lot of the things that I talk to new parents about typically, I just feel like I'm screwing them up. I'm doing a horrible job. I said, if you feel that way, it only means you're probably doing it right. And I realized that early on.
So the pain that we get from disciplining our kid, like if you want to go to the kid's party because you want to hang out with the parents, and you're telling the kid they can't go to the party because the room isn't clean, it hurts you and it hurts them.
Yeah.
But that's parenting.
Yeah.
If you're making your kid go to school because they only have a tummy ache, that's parenting. If you're making your kid do your homework or their homework, that's parenting. It's going to hurt and be ugly and make you sick to your stomach at times. If you're doing those things, you're doing it right.
Yeah. I think that a lot of our previous generations of parents, my parents, your parents, they were hung up on college. My parents certainly were. They wanted to make sure we were going to college. That was the pathway to success. Mine were.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. They wanted both of us to go. My brother, I talk about this all the time, tremendous shadow to live in. He did everything, quote, right, and one day I'll have him on and we'll talk about this and unpack it. But I lived in his shadow, and I was not the problem child, but I gave my parents a little bit more of a run for their money.
You're the drummer, bro. Like, I get it. Yeah.
I did my own thing. Yeah. I really literally marched to the beat of my own drum. Yeah. And I think I was a lot like my dad. And I think he saw a lot of himself in me, and he maybe didn't like that. I mean, he loved us unconditionally, to the nth degree. But when it came to grades and things of that nature, well, you're so much better than that. You can do, I don't harp on that stuff with my kids because it's like, I don't think college is the answer for everybody at all. And that's a common narrative now. It's certainly, inserted itself into the vernacular of the culture that, you can be successful figuring something else out. I impress upon my kids, I want you to be self-aware, okay? It's going to be okay to fall on your face in your 20s, to try things out. I don't want you to get in, if you start harming yourself or taking drugs or hanging out with the wrong people. No, we're going to put that in check. But I want you to, if it's being in a band, if it's producing music, dude, knock yourself out. Go do it. Learn how to monetize it and apply everything that I taught you with sales and marketing, things of that nature, and take it to a whole other level. I want you to be more successful than me. Spencer at one time told me, he says, you only want me to play drums in band because you play drums. I said, no, that's absolutely not the case. And I will tell you that till I'm blue in the face. I don't care if you want to play drums. I tell you to play drums because you're good at it. You have a gift. And if you continue doing that and, down the path and do the things I didn't do, you're going to be amazing, but you have to want to do it.
Yeah. So
I'm not going to force you to do it.
My parents, So you have a brother issue. I have a sister issue. So my sister had some medical issues. And so I was on my mom's hip and in a hospital at Stanford Children's Hospital for the better part of my, baby years, like 2 until 6. My sister had leukemia. She battled through it, but that was the main focus of our house, was my sister's care. And I was the person who cast the shadow on my sister. Athlete, good grades, likable, all these things. And so my sister was always battling to try and be, like overcome me or like figure that out. But my mom, as a single parent, was just trying to get by and keep her kids alive. She did the best that she could. My dad, my parents divorced early, so my dad did the best that he could. He didn't like to play with me. He didn't roughhouse me. He didn't teach me how to fight. He didn't teach me how to wrestle. My dad was a 3rd in state in Montana in wrestling. He didn't teach me how to wrestle. Didn't encourage me to go out for the wrestling team. So, which is kind of odd, those little things. And so I take those as parenting lessons. So inside those moments of, why do I want them to do it? I want my son to play baseball because I did. And it's not because I played baseball. It's because of all the things I got out of playing baseball. I went to college because of baseball. I went to a very, very good high school because my mom said, I want you to go there to play baseball. I think you can bring something to it. And the unfortunate thing is, in her just getting by, I was born into a freak body and underutilized it. I was born with a freak brain and I underutilized it. And if I can just be the guidance or the force, the positive force or the negative reinforcement for my kids this is the time when you're going to, you're not going to do whatever you want. I want all the technology. I want you to read a book. I want you to read a book that you don't want to do, because I have to read financials, 100 pages of financials a day on things I don't want to read. Learning how to read things and do things that you don't want to do is important. But my son, he's going to be a good athlete and he needs a little bit of encouragement. My daughters are going to be good athletes. And if they got what my mom gave me or my father gave me, they wouldn't be in sports. So I'm giving to them what I wish I would have gotten. And so sometimes you have to be that, no, you don't understand. You're going to go play drums for an hour, and that's your punishment, or not your punishment. That's what you're going to do. That's your job. I'll pay you $5 to go play drums for an hour. I'm going to go pay you $5 to go play catch for an hour because it matters. The time that you're putting into it, and the positive or the negative encouragement that you're getting from me as your parent, you don't understand the lesson. You can't understand the lesson now. But the point of me being a parent is when you're 28 and I'm giving a speech at your wedding. And I say, remember that time and that time and that time. And at my eulogy, when you're up there speaking, you're like, you know what, my dad, my mom, they did this and they said that and they wouldn't let us. And you know what? They won't be able to recognize the benefits of a parent until it's way past.
Of course.
In the whole, the college thing, college isn't for everybody. Agreed. The time by which you recognize college isn't for somebody is not prior to them getting to college, I think that there's got to be, they can't not study and not get good grades because they don't want to go to college. I think that's a path that I wouldn't prescribe. They have to be super, super committed to other things, and grades is still important. Even though you don't go to college, you can go to a technical school, you can go to the military, you can go into law enforcement, you can go to the nursing program, you can go become a firefighter, whatever it is. But the idea of what getting good grades is, it's learning things that are foreign to you. It's doing things that you don't want to do. It's understanding concepts that you have to then deploy, which is what we do. How long did it take you to learn that board? Days, weeks, whatever. Right. It would take me months to learn that board because I'd have to go from zero. So anyhow, it's these lessons that we give as parents are no different than the lessons we give to our junior employees.
Right.
It's I want you to shave because it makes a difference. Although you in your position, you cannot recognize it makes a difference. It does make a difference. Yeah. And I want you to always answer the phone this exact way because it makes a difference. You may not recognize it makes a difference, but the lesson's going to come far down the road.
Here's the thing is that we've got friends of ours who their kids are constantly scheduled and doing stuff.
That's a different thing.
Yeah. And they comment to us, man, we'd just love to have the relationship with our kids that you have with yours. I'm like, well, we just let them be themselves.
Yeah.
If Spencer wanted to play baseball, we sign him up for baseball.
Yep.
Allie wants to play volleyball. She likes doing that. Why force them to do something that they don't like doing? They're going to remember not being forced to doing something they're not going to like doing. I get what you're saying, and being uncomfortable. They will figure it out.
If they don't
and it's
get on the team, or if they don't get in the band, if they don't do the drama thing,
right.
If they don't get the exposure, then they won't have the ability to know what they like.
In the middle school thing with the band thing for Spencer, we told him you're committing for middle school.
Yeah.
You're not convinced by the end of 8th grade to go into high school, and he was recruited. Not that you didn't have to try out for drumline. He was recruited to be on the drumline in high school.
No kidding.
He turned it down. And I said, buddy,
you don't.
I understand. I understand what we told you, that we made you commit for the 3 years in middle school, and I don't want you. Don't do this because you're spiting us. You're doing this to the detriment of yourself. Yep. You don't understand that yet.
That's the lesson.
And I said, I hope there's not a day that you come that you regret doing that. And I think it will come.
Yeah.
And I said, I want you to remember this conversation that we're having right now. I'm not making you do it. I'm going to live up to my word. But you're making this choice now to not continue. This is a phone-in type of activity for you.
Yeah.
This is easy street. You can do this. You're making the choice to not do it. I'm going to let you make that choice, but I guarantee you're going to regret it that day someday, and we're going to have a conversation about it.
Yeah. So my daughter, my older daughter Chloe, she's 14. She'll be we had my first high school orientation today. That was amazing. So she plays on some volleyball, and she's the tallest person on her team, and she's still a baby giraffe out there, so she's working on coordination and she's working on the drills. And one day she was, I pick her up from volleyball most nights, and we're driving home. She's like, man, I had a really frustrating practice, and I was getting in people's way, and I just don't know if I like this, and all these. It was just a complaint bus. Mm-hmm. We were on the complaint bus together, and I was not wanting to be on that bus with her. And I said, Chloe, from now on, I'm going to allow you 2 minutes to vent for me. Like what?
Yeah.
And I said, if you want to go more than 2 minutes, here's what you have to do. You have to be practicing at home by yourself, away from practice, because the things that you're frustrated about are your skills that you can be working on. Same thing for people who are in sales. Man, I'm terrible at these cold calls. Okay. How much have you practiced? None. You're not allowed to complain if you're not putting in the work.
But here's the thing is that I get what you're saying. I was Spencer. If I didn't like doing it, I didn't do it. But once the maturity happened and I wanted to get better at something like the car business, which happened midlife for me. I got in at 37, and I had to do all these uncomfortable things I've never done before. I came out of an industry where I was the man. I was good at what I did. It just didn't pay anymore. So I had to go find something different. So here I am at 37 getting into the car business and sitting in a cubicle and making phone calls that are uncomfortable and following up with customers and learning the process. But I didn't like one bit of it.
So there's a difference.
It sucked.
Hang on a second. So your son, he's not allowed to complain about the missed opportunity of band or of drumline.
No.
Because he didn't go down that road. Chloe is not allowed to complain about her experience on the court in volleyball if she doesn't practice. You wouldn't be allowed to complain about your income as a car salesperson.
Right.
That's my point. You can do it. You can try. You can do all those things. You can fail. But if you're complaining and you're not actively getting better, I have zero interest to hear anything that you have to say.
But here's the thing. Because of the maturity level that I had a family, had a house, I got to make an income.
Yeah.
I had to put myself in the place of uncomfortable, being uncomfortable and learning something new and figuring it out and going through the process. I knew that at that point, and I purposely put myself into that place. Yep. Understanding myself, how I learn. Literally, okay, here's a recorder. speak it into my phone, give me the spiel of all the second sale stuff. So, the mop and slop, the extended warranty, tire
He's
and
talking
wheel.
finance stuff for you people who don't
all
know
that
what he's talking
stuff. Okay. Because I just couldn't grasp it. No matter how many times the managers told me the spiel and the FBI, the feature benefit impact, I just couldn't get it. I said, well, okay, I'm not learning to my process because I know myself, because my self-awareness was heightened. And I knew that about myself. Okay, I learn best by listening and repetition.
So the fighting
I had a friend of mine who I'm still friends with now.
Okay.
Give me the spiel. Okay, that's it. Good. Give me the next spiel. Give me the next spiel. And I listened to it over and over and over.
If you
again.
complained about the amount of money that you were making and you weren't doing those things, I'd be like, dude, I have no time for you.
Yeah.
And if your wife says, hey, Jim, why don't you have a big paycheck this month? And you say, well, it's this and it's that. And she'd say, are you asking people to tell you what they say? Well, no. Then you have nothing to complain about.
That's true. You're not trying to fix the problem.
That's exactly right. So, for anybody, if they're woe is me life, if they're apathetic about things, and I think that apathy is a very, very contagious disease. And apathy is a tough one. But if somebody's complaining about the fact that they don't have money, but they didn't even try in high school, and they didn't try to go to college, they didn't go into the military, they didn't go to a technical school. Like if you're 26 and you're working for minimum wage and you're unshaven and you look like you haven't showered in days and you've got all these things, and I say, okay, you're not allowed to complain.
Right.
If you haven't,
you're not trying.
You're not trying. You haven't tried yesterday. You didn't try yesterday. You're not trying today. Are you going to try tomorrow? Mm-hmm. That's going to be what dictates your outcome in the future. It's not going to be your complaining, because you and I have both been around people. They drive their own complaint bus, and you're like, have you ever done anything that would counteract your experience? It could be health, relationships, income, fun, all those things. Well, no, I have zero time for these complaints because they're just unfounded. You can't complain about something that you're not actually actively trying to get better at. So it's like sales. Like I'll let the cat out of the bag. Can I plug here?
Yeah.
So my service that I'm going to be offering on Trade Bank.
Yeah. Do
you know what it's going to be? Can you take a guess?
No.
It's a service.
That sounds too hard. I don't want to take a guess. Can I complain about it now?
So I'm going to offer sales coaching.
Yeah.
And I'm not.
That's a good idea.
I'm not going to take on the whole entire world, but I think that there's some people who can benefit from sales coaching, and the amount of time and effort and practice that I've put into sales coaching, like I can't complain about the results I get when I sell.
Right.
I cannot understand the process of like how to do loans and things like that, but I never complained about, I didn't make any sales calls. I'm doing the dig. Yeah. I'm grinding. But
you are overthinking your content strategy, though. We've talked about that in the past.
Yes.
And you may complain about the fact that you're not as big as you need to be in 5 years.
Yeah. So
I'm going to say, well, are you complaining to me, or are we going to put something together and make sure you got a freaking podcast with clips that we're going to extract and a content
Jim,
strategy?
You are correct,
because you've got a personality, and you've got an amazing way about you when it comes to sales coaching. Yes. And if you guys want to hire Dan to be a sales coach in any business, the guy, he really does bring to light a lot of things and strategies to help you in your business. Yeah. I mean, I forget about so it sounds like, that response. I've begun, because of our last podcast, I've begun saying, how do you counteract the salesman? And I've been using so how am I supposed to, so you want me to do this and this and this. How am I supposed to make that happen? I actually have used that.
How am I supposed to? Oh, it's so good. So good.
That's what I remember. And that's something that I knew in the car business, but I forgot.
Yeah. And there's two things here. So one, like my problem right now is why I'm not putting a bunch of capital clips and doing that is I'm buried. Yeah. Like I have enough files to work. I'm not looking for more. I'm turning actually files away. So that's not my problem. Is how do I take on more? I become more efficient, which is not putting out clips. It's actually just learning how to do the job. Yeah. And so in terms of the sales coaching, I absolutely want to let you know, I absolutely 100% didn't come on here to pitch to the 10,000 people.
Whatever, that's fine.
I'm just making a joke. But yeah, sales coaching is a thing that I have passion for. And it's interesting, like what you said, what I didn't know. It is not what we know. Because how many times have you told a kid, hey, you're supposed to fill up the car with gas before you drive it? I know. Yeah. Well, clearly you don't know.
Well, I mean, there's so many times that's going to happen before they figure it out.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's not what we say that we know. What we know could fill a battleship, but what is actually important for life, it's what we can recall and act on in the moment.
Right.
And so you knew, like, oh, how am I supposed to do that? You knew it, but you weren't able to actively recall on it until you had some outside perspective or outside coaching.
Yeah.
Like until you actually have somebody else tell you what you look like in the mirror or sound like on the radio, and you are unaware. Mm-hmm. You talk about self-awareness. If you're unaware of your verbal tick, you'll keep on going. If you're aware of your verbal tick, you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't know I said that as much as I did after every sentence. They have repetition blindness to their own words, which is something that can
I hear it all the time in this podcast.
Really?
Yeah.
Like, do you have a verbal tick of your own?
I actually have them written down.
Okay. So this is awareness. I mean,
I tell people and I stammer. So it's just a matter of me where I get really excited and I just need to slow down and take a beat and think about what I want to say and put it out there.
Generally, I would say slow down fixes all of those other problems.
Totally.
Yeah.
But I mean is a tick. Is a tick.
That's an approval.
You listen to Gary Vaynerchuk. His is like
10 in a row.
Oh my gosh.
An F word.
Yeah.
8 in a row.
Yeah. Well, with that being said, how do people find and follow you? Let's wrap this up.
Wrap it up. So you can find if somebody's out there and they're not really good with their words and they use words to drive revenue, like they're in sales, whether they're the owner or they're actually a salesperson, you can go to Trade Bank. And Trade Bank Nashville, you can probably...
We're going to have a link for that, right?
Yeah, sure, I'll get you a link for that.
Okay. Yeah. We'll put it in the description.
So you can actually contract, you can become a Trade Bank member and then find me there. You can find me on LinkedIn or you can just do a Google search. I'm Googleable. Googleable.
Yeah.
You can just...
You got LinkedIn, you've got Facebook, you've got...
Dan Rogers-CRE will take you to my LinkedIn page. They'll actually get you all my contact information. You can just say, hey, I heard you on... Jim's podcast, and I want to talk about sales. And I'm happy to take an entry level or a beginning conversation about anything around sales with anybody. Like, we'll talk sales.
Yeah.
If you want to work with me after that, then that's something we can figure out then. But I'm happy to share what I know with a lot of people.
Maybe you need to give me an affiliate link, and I can take a piece of the pie because I could totally promote you.
How am I supposed to give you a piece of the pie?
I don't know. Figure that out.
I just used how much.
I know what you did.
Okay. I recalled in the moment and deployed in the moment. So yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn. If you reach out and connect to me on LinkedIn, just say that you heard me on the Jim McCarthy
on the
podcast.
What's Your Problem podcast.
What's Your Problem podcast.
There you go.
Are you anything you want to plug these days that you haven't?
I pretty much do it every single podcast.
I know.
Yeah.
You're a plug machine.
If you're if you need a podcast, it's yourshow.co and make sure that you talk to us about podcasting because we could certainly help you.
So I think that there's definitely some room for some future episodes.
Yeah.
And maybe people weigh in on whether they
want to
you and
I, we have conversations that go for hours. So it's like,
So I see a clock behind you. It's not 6 o'clock, is it?
No.
Okay, thank God.
No, those clocks are actually products that we're developing here at J Squared. The color clocks that are really nice. They've got nice casings and such. But we've got to figure out. Some of them run a little bit fast. But again, they're prototypes.
Yeah.
Well, with that being said, the What's Your Problem podcast, go to what'syourproblempodcast.com. Again, 10,000 downloads. We're looking for that average this year. Slowly on our way. If you can help us out by sharing, telling people about it, that'd be awesome. If there's anybody you think needs to be on the podcast, they got to be here in town and in studio. That's the way I like it. It's just a better conversation. Point them my way. What'syourproblempodcast.com. Mr. Dan Rogers, as always, a wonderful conversation. Thanks for coming out all the way from Murfreesboro.
Thank you again. Appreciate the time.